Good morning, friends. It's September. Can you even believe it? Man, I hope you had a good Sabbath Sunday last Sunday as we did not gather for church, and I hope you had a chance to connect with God and connect with other beloveds and connect with rest. And now we're back here for our feast. Woohoo! Yes! I'm Pastor Sara. I'm here using video to speak with you as I recover from post-concussion syndrome and using video as a way to just take it easier on my brain. So thank you for that grace. And I'm here to do two things with this video, okay? First thing, I'm here to set up our conversations that we're going to have during our meal time today, which will be after this time, to give us direction and content to focus on as we eat. So that's the first thing. Second, I'm doing that. And as I do it, I'm also going to reveal some really big, exciting news for our community. You guys, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be change, but it's going to be good. Just a heads up about this video. I usually try to make things a lot shorter for our feast, just give you something and then off we go to eat. But this is a special moment in the life of our community, and I want to make room to say the things that need to be said. And I'm asking you to really receive a lot of information here in a few minutes. So get your hearts and your bodies ready for that. And for our kids who are in the room, who's here? We're so glad you're here. Do keep those Legos and Play-Doh and all the fun things that Rachel has set out for you. Keep those handy as you listen. This is also a conversation I want to name that we're pretty focused on us as a community, which can feel pretty insular. So I just want to name how even this is a conversation talking about us, but we have this conversation so that we can be even more turned outward, engaged in love, in justice, in mercy in our world. All right, you ready? Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, so to get us where we're headed, we're going to begin with our Bible text for today, which is John chapter 1, verses 43 through 49. So this is near the beginning of John's gospel. In John's gospel, there's no manger, there's no birth story, but Jesus shows up as an adult. Here he is. And in these first scenes with Jesus, he's behaving like a rabbi. He is inviting students to come and learn from him, to follow him as their rabbi, which was just something that happened within their culture. And this brief text that we're going to read, he's in the middle of that. Jesus, he has just, prior to this, he's just said to Andrew and Peter, come follow me. And they're following him. And here, what we're going to read, he invites Philip to become a student too. Then Philip goes and finds Nathanael. And I want us to pay attention to the interplay between Philip and Nathanael, and then watch how things play out for Nathanael, okay? So that's what we're going to pay attention to. We're going to have someone read it here in the room, so take a look at your tables. The reading is printed on a yellow piece of paper. Find it on your table. If someone wants to read, awesome. If no one wants to, let's see a little rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to read it. Then we'll hear from John chapter 1.
The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. When he got there, he ran across Philip and said, "Come, follow me." Philip's hometown was Bethsaida, the same as Andrew and Peter. Philip went and found Nathanael and told him, "We found the one Moses wrote of in the law, the one preached by the prophets. It's Jesus, Joseph's son, the one from Nazareth." Nathanael said, "Nazareth? You've got to be kidding." But Philip said, "Come, see for yourself." When Jesus saw him coming, he said, "There's a real Israelite, not a false bone in his body." Nathanael said, "Where did you get that idea? You don't know me." Jesus answered, "One day, long before Philip called you here, I saw you under the fig tree." Nathanael exclaimed, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God, the King of Israel."
All right, did you listen into Nathanael in what we heard? How we see Nathanael's perspective change very dramatically in this text when it comes to Jesus. He changes from, "Nazareth, you've got to be kidding me. Not this guy," right? To saying about Jesus, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God." That's quite a shift. Observe how Nathanael, like any of us, he is rooted in his own ideas, his own history and way of seeing things, which in this case was that whoever the Messiah would be, certainly Nazareth is not the place where the Messiah is going to be coming from. But again, we all have our own opinions about things, our perspectives, our ways of being, seeing, assuming, like Nathaniel did for this. But there's a pivot point in this narrative that makes it possible for change to happen. It creates the conditions for opening, for shifting, and that shift is made possible. It all centers around Philip's response to Nathaniel. When Nathaniel says, "Nazareth, you've got to be kidding me," Philip says, "Come see for yourself." Come see for yourself. Other translations, which you may be familiar with, say, "Come and see." Come see for yourself. So this simple line, this invitation, we could just breeze over it, no big deal. It actually is deeply profound. It names and embodies how we move into the possibility of transformation, into fresh ways of seeing, into growth and change when we actually show up, moving towards something that confronts our ways that we see, our ways that we assume. This posture of showing up, this posture of come and see, is one of the reasons why I love following Jesus. Because this is part of the posture that we're invited to hold in the world. Come, see for yourself. Come and see. It holds openness and curiosity as a way of existing, as a way that leads us into change, believing that we don't have it all figured out, but there just might be something new for us if we show up, if we come and see. So hang on to this idea, hang on to this text, okay? Keep it with us, right? We got it? We're going to come back to it in a moment, but I want us to use it now to set up the big news for us, some changes here at Salt House. I want to start it by reflecting a little bit on my own journey with post-concussion syndrome. So in 3 weeks, at the end of September, will be the 1-year mark since my injury, 1 year. And it was a mild concussion. It happened in a soccer game when I fell back and I hit my head on the turf. It was a traumatic brain injury that became post-concussion syndrome, which is just something that can happen after someone has a concussion, which is just the extension of those symptoms lasting for a long time. And usually a year is when folks feel pretty normal again. Well, I'm almost to that 1-year mark. And as you know, I've had limited mental capacity this year, needing to rest and meditate throughout the day. I continue to undergo various forms of therapy and body work. I've seen incredible healing, but I do still get mentally exhausted and overstimulated at times when I push it. And public speaking in particular, with the accompanying adrenaline, can be a challenge still for me. It's getting better, but it's still challenging because my body is still getting better at processing adrenaline in a normal way and not thinking that it's actually experiencing trauma again. So I'm still in that process. But through this year, one thing that I've experienced is God's invitation to me, like Philip here with Nathaniel, to come and see. God saying, "Come, see, Sarah, see for yourself what might happen as you move towards your injury and your process of healing." Something that, I absolutely want to live into my healing, right? But there are many moments that I've not wanted to move towards it because there are scary parts of this too, right? So many questions and the what ifs and the unknowing of how my brain is going to be, how even my personality is going to be as I move through this. But when I have moved toward my injury and my journey and shown up in that, I've had to be very much in process with paying attention to my priorities. I'm so aware of how I only have this much energy, this much brain power every day. This is what I have today. So how am I going to use this today? And this process in the midst of the tragedy that I'm living in has become one of the gifts. For it's become this privilege of being forced to ask and live the question of what matters most to me and how do I want to spend my life in light of that? When else do we make that time to sort out things in this way, right? So with my limited mental capacity, I've had to, including in how I spend my time with Salt House. So it's really funny because I was living into all these questions about my priorities and how do I want to hold those things. So this summer series about forming questions was my life. I was forming some pretty big questions as I began to consider what I want my reentry at Salt House to look like. What do I want to do? What do I not want to do? And really, what does Salt House need? right now too. Because this past year, it's been a good year for us as a community, but it's been a hard year for us, as there have been limitations on what we can do because of the limitations of what I can do right now, and I grieve that. Even as I know folks have stepped up and we have had a good year, it has been tough. What began to shift over the summer as I was having conversations with some of our leadership was a shift into the possibility of staffing things differently than we are now. Shifting out of this place of kind of almost like maintenance that we've been in to a degree with my recovery, shifting into a place of generosity and possibility and taking some beautiful risks together as a community. So we began talking and dreaming about staffing our church for growth in all the ways that we're ready to grow. And it feels so stinking exciting and just full of God's presence as we consider this. So before we get to kind of the big fun news, there's one change in staffing that was not part of this, that wasn't planned, that I want to mention separately before we get into the exciting stuff. And it's not exciting news because it is a goodbye. You probably heard this week that Taryn Grass, our community administrator, has resigned from her role with Salt House. We'll say more and we'll take a moment with her to pray for her later in the service. But I do want to name that for those who heard about, but also if you who hadn't heard about it, even if you did, you'd be like, wait, what about Taryn? And so I want to name that is happening too. So we're going to hold that and have some time with that later in the service as well. So I want to name that. And now I want to shift into naming 3 other changes that we've been planning and moving towards, okay? So this is the news. There are 3 staffing changes. They are all approved of and recommended by our church council for us to, as a church, potentially move forward on. But some of this will need to be voted on and actually officially approved by all y'all as a church. And so in 3 weeks on Sunday, September 29th, we will have a meeting, a congregational meeting to vote on some of this, okay? Before then, we'll have more specifics, more information available too. Specifically, we'll have more information on Sunday, September 22nd. So what I'm going to do now is just give us like the 10,000-foot view on what we're headed towards, and then all the details will be shared with opportunities for questions and sorting all out in the 3 weeks to come, okay? So that's where we're headed. Are you ready? Are you ready? Cool. So here it is, an abbreviated version of the staffing shifts that we're making here. I'll be honest, the first one won't sound that exciting, but it will be as you hear the rest of it, okay? Okay, because the first thing is that I've decided that I want to work 3/4 time at Salt House, not full time, which is a hard thing and really a big deal for me to say because I want to do all the things because I love all the things and I love doing them with you. But I also want more time with my family, something that I've really learned this year. So I'm going to be 3/4 time, really once I'm able to do that, which will be relatively soon. I'm at about 25 hours a week right now in my building it back in my recovery. And I will strategically focus in certain areas, like continuing to create and curate our sermon series and our Sunday morning experience, doing most of our preaching, discipling our leadership team, our church council, managing our staff, overseeing our care ministry. I will be focused in the work that I do instead of holding all the things, which I just think is a really healthy thing, and I think it's a really time for this in the life of our new church to kind of spread out who's holding all the things. So that's the first thing, that I'm dialing it back to 3/4 time. Second then, also, again, a little bit more exciting, drum roll please, if you will, we have asked Pastor Ryan Marsh to come onto staff at halftime. Yes, right? So this is not a formal call in the language of Lutheran pastors, but it's a contract and it's for the next 9 months. 9 months only because Ryan and his wife Bonnie are in the midst of just some really great discernment about what they want to do as a family kind of next year. And so this for them will take them through that time because they may want to make some big changes, move to a different place in the country or the world. But for now, they're really excited and committed to being here with us at Salt House. So Ryan coming on staff, half-time, 9-month contract. And you guys, can I just say, isn't this the best? Isn't Ryan awesome? Yes. So Ryan, can you just like wave awkwardly where you are right now? And can we just take a moment to say thank you to Ryan for being such a beautiful presence with us for this past year? Yeah. Can we do this? Yes. Yes. Thank you. Pastor Ryan, you may know this, but Pastor Ryan was already a part of the Salt House family, with his family, but after my brain injury, we've been paying him just a stipend to be here on Sundays, to be that presence that's leading worship and upfront almost every single Sunday for the last 9 months. And so we're so excited to expand his role to more. And if you know me, it is darn hard for me to hand off things that I love and care about to other people. And yet, I have felt so confident in and grateful for Ryan's leadership among us. Just such a gift from God. Like so many others who have stepped up in this last year, such a gift from God. But thank you to Ryan. So just to say a little bit about what he'll be doing in these next 9 months, Pastor Ryan will strategically focus on areas that we want to see growth in. Listen up as I'm just going to rip through the 4 areas that we're going to have Pastor Ryan focus on, okay? So first, they are children's and family ministry. So partnering then with Rachel Horton, our Salt House Kids leader, especially in developing our middle school and high school ministries, as well as the faith formation experience from like that birth all the way through kind of experience. What does that look like for us and our kids? So Rachel, she is the best that I've ever seen in children's ministry. She loves and leads our kids in such an amazing way. So she and Pastor Ryan will really take on this work together. So second, Pastor Ryan will also teach here among us, adult education, as it is often called. This is Bible study, and really Bible study from a progressive lens. Like, how do we read the Bible in ways that sync up with the ways in which we talk about it here at Salt House? People have been asking for this in our community, and we're excited to lean into that with Pastor Ryan. Third, Pastor Ryan will also focus on our role with homelessness. It's part of our DNA, right? This is part of who we are in this space together. We have amazing volunteers who have led our teams. Heather Preston, Kim Saunders. We also have that Thrive team with homelessness. And they have been doing an awesome job on Salt House's behalf. But it's a lot. And we want to see more time and energy pushed into outreach in this way, especially with the shelter being completed this next summer. Pastor Ryan will partner with our Homelessness Thrive team, working with us for a vision of how we can be better neighbors with these folks, especially as things progress with the new shelter. And finally, fourth, Pastor Ryan will have his hands on the experience of connection here at Salt House, looking at how folks make contact and get involved, and looking at how we support our small group leaders. So those are his 4 areas that he will be strategically focusing on. Again, more specifics in the week to come. So changes for me, changes for Pastor Ryan, and the final change is that Jason Bendixson will be expanding his role as well. He will partner with Pastor Ryan in the connecting and small group experience, like really looking at how community is built. And I know people are looking for those kinds of connections. Then additionally, Jason will focus on our commitment to radical welcome and look at the whole experience of welcome here at Salt House, what it means to show up through these doors, but also how do we be a voice in the midst of a Christian voice in our country and our world that could be very unwelcoming. So these, my friends, these are the ways that we want to change and shift and grow our community. This is our big news, and it feels so good and right to lean into our growth right now. So to be clear, all of this change, it's growth, and it costs money, right? Which is why we need to vote on this, because our governing documents, our Constitution, requires a church vote on anything that changes our approved budget. Remember, we voted on and approved our budget for this fiscal year, yes, but if there's changes more than $5,000 within that, then we as a community have to vote to approve that. So our vote will be, again, as I said, on September 29th, Sunday. So that's 3 weeks from today, a short meeting that will happen after worship. That morning we'll actually spend with our special guest, Justin McRoberts, which will be a great morning, and then we'll have that time to vote together. And in full transparency, if you've been watching the budget, then, we report on it every quarter, so you've been hearing this, but if you've been watching it, that you know that we are not currently receiving enough income to sustain this growth in staff. But if you've been watching our budget, then you also know that we have money in the bank from the sale of our property for the shelter. And we want to intentionally invest some of this money that we have in these ways, hoping that the giving will grow too as we equip Pastor Ryan and Jason and the rest of our staff to help us grow our experience of Jesus' love and inclusion here, our connection with God and each other, and the impact we have engaging in homelessness and our wider world. And again, this is only a 9-month commitment. After Pastor Ryan's 9-month contract, we'll have a chance to evaluate how things are going, if we're growing, and if giving is starting to match that growth. And Ryan may even decide at that point to stay. So there's a lot of things we can check in about after that 9 months. So again, all this is happening, but this is a measured, finite time, strategically focused on how we wanted to develop our community. And in 9 months, at the end of June 2020, we'll reevaluate and set a new course if necessary. And my friends, after this year that I've had, that we have had, doesn't this feel like movement in the right direction? Expansive, it's risky, it's deepening, it's connecting our yes and to God. For the sake of becoming more fully salt and light and love in our hurting world. Do you hear how this is an invitation to come and see, to come see for yourself what God might do in us together this year? Because that is what this is. That is where this conversation is headed now, bringing it back to our text and to the conversation that we'll then have at our table. So my question for you, my friends, for the tables and for our meal is, as you consider the kickoff of the fall, as you consider the next 9 months ahead, as I've just described them, how do you want to come and see? How do you want to move toward and into something new that might lead you into your growth and transformation? Because we need you here in these next months ahead and beyond. So this is just the one question for our tables today. How do you want to show up at Salt House in this next season? How do you want to show up at Salt House in this next season? How do you want to show up? And I do encourage you to answer this as a Salt House question, showing up here, seeing for yourself, as the text says here. But it's also broader than that, yes? Where do you want to show up? And if you're someone who isn't connected to this community, or you're not physically here on Sundays, or you won't be in the weeks to come, then just that question of where, how, with whom do you want to invest and show up? To help us answer this question, you have a smorgasbord of information right there in front of you at your tables to help you consider your investment, what your showing up can look like. So I want to draw your attention to what we call our continuum of engagement. Can you find it there on your table? Which names 5 basic ways of engagement that we all find ourselves in here at different times. And we just like to map it out to give you a sense of what that looks like. And to be clear, it's not a progression. It's not that you start at one end and move your way through. You don't graduate and then you're done, but it's really fluid. We move back and forth, and we can often occupy more than one space at one time. So I'm going to talk through these 5 areas, and I would invite you to hold that question, where do you want to land in these 5 areas? So here they are. The first is simply just committing to showing up on Sundays, or tuning in via the podcast or the live stream. Just showing up, committing to that on Sundays. That is a thing. And maybe that's your level of commitment for the next season. Boom, that's it. That's awesome. Or maybe you want to show up to connect and converse, that next area, to engage in the moments of conversation and authenticity that we try to create here. Like what happens around tables in these conversations, or establishing connection by joining someone for coffee here, or making that happen during the week. Or maybe for you, it's the next level of engagement. Maybe you want to sign up as a volunteer to help on Sundays. There are so many ways to do that, to help serve on Sundays, as it does take a small army to make what happens here, our experience of Sundays together. If this is something that you want to continue to do or do for the first time, we have out in the lobby, we have signups for so many ways to plug in. So we'll keep these signups up for the entire month of September, so do know that you can continue to sign up in the weeks to come. But serving alongside others, man, that is a great way to connect and to grow. So maybe that's how you want to show up. Or maybe you're looking for deepening relationships and stimulating conversation, and you want to grow alongside others in a different kind of way. then check out our small groups, our opportunities for the fall. Man, you have that listed out there at the table. We have some great groups. So excited about that. So grateful for our leaders who are running with these groups. So read through those options. Some start soon. Some will start later in October. Take a look and see what might work for you. Or the final way to engage is by joining one of our Thrive teams for this next season. So our Thrive teams combine the small group experience with serving together. Each team focuses on one area in the life of our community, and they just run with it together. So take a look at where you might want to be a part of that, be instrumental on a team in helping us be who we are here at Salt House and beyond. So information about small groups, about Thrive teams, it's all there at your tables, as well as posted online, including those signups that are there as well. And I will say there is kind of a sixth way to be involved that's not on the continuum, and that's just something that you dream up. Something missing that's not like in a category, yet you are feeling drawn to, curious about, that you hear God in some way nudging you into with a kind of, come see for yourself. So we've actually tried to place members of our church council or other leaders at each of our tables who can be there to help capture those ideas that may come up that you may have. And they are also there to help capture any questions you may have about our staffing changes so that we can be sure to speak to those questions in the weeks to come. So those folks we've kind of placed around the room, can you guys wave your hands like a leader, council member at each table? Let us know who you are. Hello. We can see who those are, but also see if we need to fill in those spots. I know that what I've shared can be a lot to digest, so folks are here very intentionally to be with us in this change. So let them know if you have questions. And for our kids in the room right now, kids, hello. Who's still here? Hello, Salt House kids. If you are a kid in this room, can I see you wave now? Hi, hello, hello. Guess what? We're about to have food, and we're about to have conversation. And we're excited to hear about how you want to engage at Salt House. What do you like doing here? What do you want to see more of? We want to hear your ideas. We'll make sure to ask you that and have room to share your answer. If you want to, don't have to, as we eat and share together. So my friends, who's hungry? Who's hungry but you're going to eat anyway? That's me. So let's take all of this into conversation. It may have already been said, but I'll say it again. Be sure to squeeze into the tables, fill in those empty chairs, get cozy with one another, and let there be many empty chairs at the table, okay? So we can really have conversation. Don't be shy, and do feel free to move as soon as the video's over into a new spot if you need to. Also, do begin your conversation. As you're waiting for your table to be dismissed, we don't have that much time to talk, so take advantage of that time. Introduce yourselves if you haven't already, and be sure everyone has a chance to share over the course of our time. Put things on pause if you need to as you go get food or keep talking in line, but really use the time and space that we have together. All of this is to engage us with Jesus, who meets us here at the table. Here, Jesus meets us in one another, here in the food that we share, where we are invited to come and see for ourselves what God is inviting us all into in the season to come, which is change. I mean, it's the fall, after all, yes? And we live into these changes by the grace of God together. Friends, let's take a deep breath together. Let's take a moment to pray as we head towards our meal. God, we thank you that good and sacred things happen when we eat together, as we take into our bodies the food we need to sustain us, as well as so much more that sustains us. For at this table, we experience your love and the love of others and the chance to share in something that is so normal, it's messy, and yet so holy. So let it be so now in the food and the words and the possibilities that we share as we dream about how we want to show up together. What a gift to say yes to you and to this life that we have in this way at the table. So God, for all of it, we say thank you. And everybody said, amen.